All the college games that we'll have tomorrow, and then the NFL games starting right around the corner. We are having a jam-packed football Friday. We just had Herbie on from Columbus getting set for all the great college games this weekend. And you see the squad that we have put together for this huge day in the National Football League. It was the trade heard round the sports world. The Cowboys sending superstar edge rusher Micah Parsons to the Packers in exchange for defensive tackle Kenny Clark, and then Green Bay's first-round picks in each of the next 2 drafts. Parsons then gets a 4-year, $188 million contract from Green Bay. $136 million is total guaranteed. That makes him the highest-paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Micah Parsons released a statement. It said, "I never wanted this chapter to end, but not everything was in my control. My heart has always been here, and it still is. Through it all, I never made any demands. I never asked for anything more than fairness. I only asked that the person I trust to negotiate my contract be part of the process. This is a sad day, but not a bitter one." So that's what he said. Now we hear from Jerry Jones and Cowboys legend Michael Irvin.
This gives us a better chance to be a better team than we have been the last several years since Micah's been here. Not any negative on Micah, but we're trying to get better. We're trying to stop the run and stay in the hunt. I'm very, very excited about the prospects of what we've done for the Cowboys here. We got what we wanted. Ain't no mistake about it. We all know we could have signed Micah, but we decided to go with the trade.
This is a dark and sad day. Cowboys Nation and the Dallas Cowboys. But as much as I love Micah Parsons, and I hope the best for him and his family, this is a real sad day.
So Michael's taking it hard. The reaction has been a lot like that all morning long. You see, we put the squad together here, and Shefty, of course, working the story all day long yesterday with Graz and so many of our outstanding reporters. And so if you're with us at the beginning of the show, Shefty, you walked us through in great detail how we got from March to yesterday. Here's what I want to do this time. How did the Cowboys arrive at the decision that they would trade him? You just heard Jerry Jones say, we could have signed Micah if we wanted to, and I think we all know that to be true. Micah Parsons wanted to be there. He wanted to sign the contract. Why did the Cowboys, to the best of our knowledge, why did they decide that this was the best course of action for them?
I think in the end, they knew that they weren't going to be re-signing Micah Parsons to a long-term deal. I want to emphasize this again. From the time that Jerry Jones felt he had a handshake agreement in March till yesterday, there were exactly zero discussions of a new contract. The topic never was broached. Jerry Jones felt like he had an agreement for $40.5 million a year with the pass rushing market exploding, TJ Watt getting 41. I don't think Jerry Jones ever intended to budge off the deal that he felt he had, which Micah Parsons never was going to take, which meant if he stayed in Dallas, he would have to play out that contract, be franchised. Micah never was going to do that, and I think Dallas recognized it over time. Jerry Jones acknowledged that even though he publicly said that he wouldn't trade Micah Parsons, he knew he was thinking of it, but he didn't want to advertise it because he felt like it would dilute his asking price. Well, I could tell you this. On Wednesday, I began getting calls from people around the league, other teams, checked in with the Cowboys. I had heard that this was coming to a head in the next couple of days. And when you called around, the Dallas Cowboys said, we just want this resolved one way or another. Well, what does that mean, one way or another? We know that he's not signing an extension, so clearly a trade must be at hand. They were talking to multiple suitors. The Green Bay Packers were one of them. And when the Cowboys woke up yesterday morning, I don't know that even they knew that the trade would come down later in the day. There still was a lot that had to be done. The Packers knew they were talking to the Cowboys, but they didn't know it was going to get done because Kenny Clark, the player included in the deal, practiced yesterday with the Green Bay Packers. If they knew they were making that deal, Kenny Clark is not on the practice field risking injury, and as soon as he gets called off the practice field, he finds out. Later in the afternoon, I get a call after we put out the story that the Cowboys were listening to offers. And I was told this trade will be done by the end of the night. And in fact, it was in the afternoon after Micah Parsons agreed to a deal with the Dallas Cowboys, 4 years, $188 million, which, oh, by the way, just happens to be $48 more million than Jerry Jones paid for the Dallas Cowboys when he had that handshake agreement that he referred to when he was trying to get Micah Parsons under contract.
And so, Dan Graziano, just to sort of fill in another blank here, I think there was a perception out there in the world, and we may have fed it, and I don't know that it's wrong, I guess I'm asking you, that this happened at least in large part because Jerry Jones felt offended or hurt or as though he had been wronged in some way. That would be a terrible reason to trade away your best player, right? It sounds like Shefty is saying, and if you may have heard Kirk Herbstreit when he was on this a little while ago, saying there may have been other things at play here too, that maybe, and I know you're not there every day, but that maybe Micah Parsons wasn't always the most popular player in that building.
There's obviously there's a lot that comes with Micah, right? Like he's obviously, you know, he has his podcast, he weighs in on every single topic, right? Like you could see where like maybe a team might say he could be a lot to deal with. The fact is he's so good that it doesn't matter.
That's right.
You should be able to do. Jerry Jones has an expression where he says, "Don't let your money get mad," and it feels like he did. And it feels like, I think, because this relationship could have been fixed at some point in the last 6 months. Like a business relationship can be mended, especially when there's mutual benefit to both sides. But he never took a step toward doing that.
Can I ask you a quick question though? In Jerry Jones's comments that we listened to, he said, "This is something we've been thinking about since the spring."
Right.
In reference to trading Micah Parsons. But is that accurate? Like he's the one who said it.
I mean, look, we've been talking about it since the spring, right? So like it's certainly not like something that they were ignorant of in terms of the possibility, but it wasn't the plan. Like in the spring, like certainly it must have come up in the building. Well, what if we don't sign him, and what would that look like? But that they were going to sign him. Like ultimately, that was the decision, and that's why Jerry Jones had that conversation with Micah back in the spring, because the intent was to keep him long term.
Brady, there's another option here that we really haven't talked about, which is when you think about the Cincinnati Bengals, they just put a Band-Aid on Trey Hendrickson to cap off signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. When you're the leader of a franchise, your responsibility is also to think 6 months ahead of time. What they could have said is, hey, it's not going to work here long term, and we're going to get a massive haul in the March of 2026. We're going to sit down with Micah and David Mulligan, his agent, and we're going to put a Band-Aid on this. We're going to maybe split the difference between 24 and 40. We'll give you an $8 million raise, $10 million raise on a one-year deal. And then when we get to March, we're going to hold the greatest auction in the history of the NFL and get a Herschel Walker type return, because again, Kenny Clark is 30. He is a B. He is a good football player. But for a team that won 11 games last year, 2 of those starts with Malik Willis, those are going to be low first-round picks, and it's just inconceivable that from a strategic standpoint, they made a decision in late August to do it.
Well, my thing is, you use the word strategic. I don't see where the strategy was in all of this, because it seems like the Dallas Cowboys are operating in 2 different timelines. Literally in a matter of 2 years, you've re-signed your quarterback to a historic deal. You re-signed your star wide receiver to CeeDee Lamb, and then you turn right around and you gave away, quote unquote, gave away your best player on the team. So in one breath, you're going all in because you're signing your best players, but then you trade away your best player. It like makes absolutely no sense. Where is the strategy in that? He talked about, okay, we've been thinking about trading him in March. That's the time to do it.
But that's
to get the haul. And my whole point is, there is no strategy here.
Football-wise.
There's no strategy.
Football-wise, there's nobody in football that will make sense and justify this as a football move. To your point, Mike T, if he was traded in March, the compensation would have been drastically different. And I understand the thought of, we're taking this player, we're going to trade him away, and we're going to use all those different assets that we get to kind of fill in the roster of our football team. But you didn't do that.
Right.
And that's why there has to be, remember a couple weeks ago, this is personal. There has to be so much more attached to this situation from the Cowboys' perspective, other than we think we're going to become a better football
But Dan, that's why, like, to me, like, if you're Jerry Jones, you're like, all right, we're going to do what's best for the Cowboys. In March of 26, we're going to have an auction. We're going to put a Band-Aid on it. But they're selling at the worst possible time they could have. It should have either been March of this year or March of next year. And again, that's when you're...
It got that personal? It got that personal.
That's what it seems to be. Yes. I mean,
it's not on the team anymore.
What Shefty just basically said was they realized they weren't going to be able to solve this problem any other way because Jerry Jones wasn't going to call the agent and get the deal done. He felt he had been wrong. We all think he's wrong, but he doesn't. Let me get Shefty back in here. Go ahead, Shefty.
Well, about a week ago, I think Micah Parsons and his camp reached out to see if Dallas was interested in having any conversations, and they weren't. And I don't think Micah was willing, essentially, to play this season on a reworked, compromise kind of deal when he knows that if he gets traded, he can get $47 million a year. People thought Micah Parsons didn't have any leverage. Well, he did have leverage. He had his services. He had his talents. He had other teams being interested. And he parlayed that into a deal that made him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And I go back to the timing of it. I don't think it's coincidental that the Dallas Cowboys will have their first practice, really, of the regular season today, getting ready for Thursday night's game in Philadelphia against the Eagles. The feeling is that they wanted to have this wrapped up before they stepped onto the practice field to begin preparations for next week's game against the Eagles. Now, I will say this also. They're playing in the NFC East. There are people around that division and conference who joked that they would be willing to throw in picks to make the deal to get Micah Parsons out of the division. That's how badly these other people were rooting for Micah Parsons to leave the division. Everybody wanted him gone, and the confusion amongst other NFL executives was, why did the Dallas Cowboys not make the trade in March? That's one thing, but why did they trade him in the conference to a team that's eliminated them from the postseason each of the last 3 times that they've made it that far? They didn't trade him to these other teams. I know you guys have brought up Baltimore and Buffalo. Those teams did not have the money to make this trade. They've spent it on other players. You could say it, you could say that would be great. They couldn't make it happen. There were only a select, finite group of teams that realistically, financially, could make a trade like this. It's even difficult for Green Bay to do it, but the Packers felt like it was worth stretching themselves to get a deal done for the only other player in NFL history to have at least 12 sacks in his first 4 seasons, joining a player by the name of Reggie White that Green Bay knows a thing or two about.
You don't become a shrewd businessman like Jerry Jones, where the Dallas Cowboys are worth $13.2 billion, and make an emotional decision to trade a guy in conference to the Green Bay Packers. That, to me, is why this makes absolutely no sense at all.
Yep, he got backed into a corner, because that's the point you're making, Mike T. Buffalo and Baltimore couldn't make that deal today.
Correct.
But they could have, maybe they could have made it in March, and maybe they could have made it next March.
Exactly. And to me, like, to D-Wood's point, if you're so smart and strategic about buying the Cowboys when you did it, turning it into what they have, you say, all right, we're in this situation, we screwed up, whatever it is, we're playing the Eagles in 6 days. Let's put a Band-Aid on it and revisit it.
All right, let me pause.
Very dramatic.
D-Wood is just barely holding it together. The reactions are all over the place, so I'm going to walk you through how we're going to do this. Shefty and Graz were right in the middle of this all day long, breaking this
Shout out to
news
Shefty and
late
Graz.
in the afternoon yesterday, along with outstanding work by Todd Archer as well, right? Our guy in Dallas and everything else. So we're going to start by walking you through exactly how this happened, and then we will get to the aftermath. Shefty, I'll start with you. Take as much time as you need. How in the world did we get from where we were to where we are this morning?
I think we go back to the spring, to when Jerry Jones had a handshake deal in his mind, the way that he once had a handshake deal to buy the Dallas Cowboys. When he met with Micah Parsons and shook hands on a deal that averaged $40.5 million in the spring, Jerry Jones thought they had a deal, but Micah Parsons didn't. And when Micah went back to his agent to apprise him of what they had discussed, the agent didn't want any part of a deal that was supposed to be a 5-year contract. And from that point on, the Dallas Cowboys and Micah Parsons never once negotiated another contract. So if we are looking for when the time with Micah and the Dallas Cowboys came to an unofficial end, it would be when Jerry Jones felt like he had a handshake agreement at that point in time. After that, there was silence, there were quotes that hurt feelings, there was Micah issuing a public trade request, in early August. There was Micah experiencing back tightness. Micah in California this week for a second opinion on his back. And there was zero sign or zero hope of any deal coming together to keep Micah in Dallas for the long term. Micah and his representatives reached out about a week ago to see if Dallas would be interested in moving forward, and they were not. So if they're not moving forward with a long-term deal, then clearly Jerry Jones at that point in time would have some interest in having Micah play out his contract with the Dallas Cowboys.